In Geneva, these luxury shops, investment banks, chocolatiers and watchmakers stand as symbols of the sweet success of Switzerland's economy, a refuge from the global economic crisis. But this past year, cracks started showing in this financial haven. Investments poured into the Swiss franc, making it soar against the euro and dollar and threatening Swiss exports. Alain Goutli owns 3 specialist watch boutiques in Geneva. The Swiss watch industry is the 3rd largest in the country. It employs about 50,000 people. Goutli said this past summer fewer people came and with less money to spend.
The problem has been purchasing power, which has gone way down because of a strong Swiss franc against the euro. I think there is also the psychological side, the fact that there is a crisis, people don't want to spend. In Geneva, where tourism is important, there have been fewer visitors, especially from the Gulf countries, which use the dollar. So, of course, this has had an impact on our business.
A drop in sales, a drop in exports. For this country of 8 million people, which has long prided itself on financial security and low unemployment, the pressure was on to stop the Swiss franc from soaring even more. The solution? The Swiss National Bank intervened early September. It put a cap on the exchange rate of 1.20 Swiss franc per euro. But the move is not without risk.
Confidence in Switzerland is understandable because the Swiss economy has very stable institutions. What could end up being dangerous is to believe too much in the Swiss franc as an investment refuge. This was the goal of the Swiss National Bank when it set an exchange rate. In essence, the bank is saying, ladies and gentlemen, the investors, stop coming to the Swiss franc. We are not going to let the euro crisis sink the Swiss economy and lead us to deflation. The Swiss do not want to suffer the potential consequences of the eurozone crisis.
The fear is that the eurozone crisis will eventually cost the Swiss dearly because its national bank has vowed to buy up euros to keep the franc down. And footing the bill for other people's mistakes doesn't warm the Swiss to their EU neighbors. A recent study revealed that only 1 out of 5 Swiss want to join the EU, let alone the Eurozone.
For now, the Swiss are scared, and what they see happening inside the Eurozone reinforces this Euroscepticism. The decision in early September to put a cap on the Swiss franc is typically Swiss. In other words, choose à la carte, as you would on a menu. How to get closer to the EU, but still protect Swiss interests, and to avoid one day having to give up the Swiss franc and join the EU and the Euro. This has been Swiss policy towards Europe for the last 50 or 60 years. Finding a way to avoid being marginalized, because we can't avoid what is happening in Europe as we are smack in the middle of it. But on the other hand, avoid joining the EU.
Avoiding the European Union while being geographically at the heart of Europe. And no, this is not some beer or deodorant advert, but a campaign ad for the Swiss People's Party, or SVP, for next month's parliamentary elections. It's a pretty steamy way of getting the message out. The far-right SVP party is Switzerland's biggest political party. Céline Amodru is running in the October elections. She says a lot of their support comes from their position on the EU.
Our party has been fighting against joining the European Union since 1992 because we sincerely believe that the EU system doesn't work. And today we have the proof. Merging all these countries with all their different economies and legislations and then trying to pass the same laws for everyone just doesn't work. And a single currency doesn't work either because when you have countries with economic crises, they can't play with inflation. That's what we're seeing today with the Eurozone crisis.
One area hit by the Euro crisis has been the Swiss hotel industry. Anne Soudam is co-owner of 7 hotels in Geneva and the surrounding areas. 80% of her clients are European or North American. Ms. Sudham said her hotels managed to lure clients by reducing their prices.
We had fewer clients this summer, but nothing too serious, as our hotels were between 78 and 81% full, which is a very good occupancy rate. But we are worried. Not in the short term, because we know what to do, but we're concerned about the long-term effects. 20% of our clientele comes from seminars and conferences. So if more isn't done to attract these conferences, the exhibitions or shows to Switzerland, and especially to this area, then those in the hotel industry will have some serious problems.
For those both inside and outside the Eurozone, the next few months are crucial. The Swiss National Bank has vowed to print as many francs as it takes to keep its currency down. But if Eurozone countries start defaulting, investors will be testing the resilience of this Swiss refuge even more.
What the markets are worried about today is a completely disorganized debt default, that the politicians won't be able to agree and will let Greece default in a way that is uncontrollable. If this happens, then the Swiss National Bank will have some serious problems in trying to defend the rate of 120 against the euro. Why? Well, because once again the Swiss franc will be seen as a currency refuge. This could lead to lots of movement of capital, and to fight this movement could prove very complicated for the Swiss. But on the other hand, if there is an organized Greek default, with a political solution behind it, with help, more help from the European Solidarity Fund, then the Swiss bank will be in a better position. It'll be easier for it to keep this 120 exchange rate, rather than with a disorganized Greek default.
Even Switzerland's renowned chocolates have not been completely spared from the Eurozone crisis. Here at the Chocolaterie du Rhône, Jean-Pascal Serignat is showing some students how to enjoy a bit of Swiss pride, namely his chocolates. Although there were fewer tourists this summer, he's not worried. The economics of chocolate doesn't melt in the heat of the euro crisis.
As a chocolate maker, it's true that the summer period has always been a bit slow for us anyway. But I think as September becomes October and we move well into the autumn, business will pick up, for us anyway. More often than not, people are willing to pay for our famous Swiss chocolates.
While people may still enjoy a sweet treat during a crisis, what investors want is a safe haven from the economic storms brewing in the Eurozone. And with its reputation as neutral, stable and rich, Switzerland could have a tough time convincing the markets to seek refuge elsewhere.